Hello everyone, this is Tom Morley from T3D. This is going to be the second tutorial in the text series. We're going to go into some intermediate to advanced level stuff in this tutorial. We're going to create some stone text, which will look pretty cool. We're going to switch gears, and we're not going to use the Blender render engine this time, but we'll use the Cycles rendering engine for a more realistic output. There's a few things that I need to do in order to set up the scene so that we have the correct lighting. So from the default setup, we're going to go over to our world section here. We're going to click on Use Nodes. And where it says color here, we're going to click on that little dot. We're going to select Sky Texture, and that'll bring up a nice tool for us to use that gives us a quick and dirty horizon and sun and angle of light. Let me change from solid mode to rendered mode here, and you'll see in real time here how that changes when we move, left click and move the direction of light around that icon. We probably want the light coming from that section there. And also it's a little bit dark, so I'm going to change the strength from 1 to 2.5. Okay. We won't be working with our default cube here, so we're going to right click on the default cube. Let me go back into solid mode so we can see that it's selected. Right click on the cube, press the delete key and press enter. Now we're going to add some text. If you've followed along with my first tutorial, you know that we can add text by holding the shift key down and pressing A to bring up our selections here, and we're going to select text. Next thing that we're going to do is we're going to rotate that by pressing R and then X 90 degrees. I'm going to click on the F icon here to bring up the different aspects of our text here. Go down to about the middle and click on the center button to center that with our cursor. There's a couple of things that you'll need to do to follow along with this tutorial. You'll have to download a few files here. The one font that we'll be using is called the Keep On Trucking font. You can find that just by Googling it. I'll also have a link to where you can find this TrueType font on the internet. You're also going to want to have a variety of seamless stone textures. You can also find a good selection by just Googling seamless stone textures. I'll have a link to both a place where you can get the textures and the font, at least where I picked them up. Okay, and once you have those, then we can get started. The output that we're looking for is something like this. Well, we're going to have a few different textures for our stone, almost like a jade or a granite or a sandstone, like that. A few different examples that we can use, but this is what we're going for. Okay, so we have our default text here, and it's pretty boring. We don't want to use the default text. We want to use the TrueType font that we downloaded. It's called Keep On Truckin'. So once you've downloaded that and put that font, TrueType font, in a directory, you can load that up in the font section here by just clicking on this icon. And then all you have to do is go to wherever you save that TrueType font, and here it is. We'll double click on that. You'll see that the text automatically changes to whatever you select. So we're going to extrude this by eye, probably about that much. We're also going to bevel it. We're only going to do a slight bevel, so you can click on this little right arrow here and go up to 0.004 should be enough, and the resolution will pop that up to about 4 as well. Now we don't want it to say text, we want it to say stone, so we can press the tab key, which puts us in edit mode for the font. Hit the backspace a few times, and let's type in stone. Okay, and then hit the tab key again to go back into object mode. So far so good. So now we want to give this stone a little bit of a texture. So we'll go to the material section here by clicking on the material icon, and we'll click new. This is where we can set up some different aspects of how our material is going to look. We're also going to need 2 different screens, and you can grab this the corner of the left lower corner of your initial screen and drag it over, and that will split the screens. And we'll want to change from the 3D view here, click on that and go up to node editor. So we'll be using node editing in this tutorial, so you'll get a feel for seeing both creation of our materials in the material area here, as well as what pops up over on the left hand side here in the node editor window. So you'll see that they match up. I've got a diffuse, and the diffuse is over here as well, and it's white. So if I change that to green, you'll see that that changes over in the node window as well. Okay, let's change this to material. Okay. Now what I want to do is I want to wrap my stone textures around my text here. So I want to use an image. So rather than using color here, I'm going to click on that little dot and go to image texture. You'll see that when I did that, it gave us another box over here, an image texture box. So I have it here, and I also have it over here. We're going to click on open. We're going to go to the stone images that I downloaded. And if you click on this button up here, you can see a graphical representation of the images in your folders. And I think I'm going to grab this texture here and load that up. I'm going to go into rendered mode so that we can see the effect it has on our text. Right now it's not looking quite like we thought it would. It turned kind of a brown color, but I don't see the texture on it. And that's because we have to do one of 2 things. And we have to either UV unwrap this text, which would be very painful, or we can use a technique known as box wrapping the texture around our text here, and that's what we're going to do. So over here in the node window, we're going to add another box by holding the shift and pressing the A key, and we're going to input in texture coordinates. So we're going to use the texture coordinates, the object portion of that, and we're going to left click on that little blue button drag it down and connect it to the vector blue button down here, and you'll see immediately that that stone texture now is wrapped around our text. Although it looks a little bit strange because I can see that it's kind of stone in the front, but then we just have a bunch of the lines here on the sides of the text. So we need to change our flat here in the image texture from flat to box. And you'll see that now all four sides of our text has that image wrapped around it. Kind of does all the work for us. We don't have to bother with UV unwrapping this. We get a nice looking stone texture on our text just by using this technique. This is called box wrapping. So let me move these over so that we can see it all. Okay. I'm going to grab this with my left mouse button and move it over. Let's add a plane here on the bottom. I went underneath the stone. Let's change it back to solid so it's more responsive. Just going to left click, move the cursor over there, hold the shift key, press A, add a mesh, a plane, so that I can put a floor underneath our text here. Now I'm going to click the S key and scale that up quite a bit. And left click to lock it in there. If I press 0, no, I haven't filled the whole window, so I'm going to press S again and scale it up a little bit more. There, that way I have the whole window covered as far as the floor area. I'm going to right click on the stone, press S. I'm going to scale that up just a little bit as well. That looks pretty good. Alright. So now if I go back to rendered view, yeah, that looks pretty good. Go back to solid, select the floor. Let's give that just a dark brown color. Just so we have a little bit of contrast here. There you go. That looks pretty good. I'm going to go back to our world setting and bump up the strength of our sun a little bit. Okay. Let's take a quick look at that by rendering that out. We need to, in cycles, one of the settings that you can play with to increase the quality of your render is the sampling. And right now, by default, when you first start Blender, the sampling section has your render at about 10. We need that to be about 300 so that we can get a decent render here. I also have a graphics card that I can use to help render our scene faster, so I'm going to turn that on as well. Another thing as far as performance in cycles that you'll want to do is if you have a graphics card, is go into performance and increase your X and Y here to 256. You'll actually shave a few seconds off your rendering time by increasing both of those if you're using your graphic card to render. Now you'll see when I hit F12 here that it renders a bigger area, but it also renders it a little bit faster than it would if it was the CPU only. And it's looking pretty good. So right now this is a text object. We're going to do a couple of things to change this text object into an actual mesh object. So we're going to want to do some other things to this text a little bit later. So let's press the escape key, go back into texture mode here, select the font, go to the font section. Okay, everything looks good. Okay, now we're going to click on the modifier section. We're going to add a remesh modifier. This is the same technique I used in the first video. We're going to click on remove disconnected pieces, and you'll see more of your characters show up here once you click on remove that. Still, it looks pretty bad, so we're going to increase our depth here to 9. We change the sharp to a smooth. Use smooth scaling. Kind of smooths things out a little bit here. That looks pretty good. Okay, so it's a font. We want to add the modifier to this font. So now we're going to click on Object and convert this font text object to a mesh object by convert to mesh from curve meta surf or text. Once you click on that, you'll see that the font section is no longer available because it's no longer a font, but this is a mesh object at this point. We're going to go to edit mode. I'm going to click A to select all of the faces of our mesh, and then we're going to click on smooth vertex. We're going to go down to here then for the number of times, and we're going to type in 25 and press enter. Now it'll take a little while for this to process because it's going to smooth the faces 25 times, and you'll see in just a second here that this the sides of the mesh will start to smooth out like it just did. Now we can go back to object mode by left clicking here, going to object mode. You can also use the tab key, and that seemed to have smoothed that out a little bit. Looks pretty good. Now to make it more stone-like, we're going to click on the object mode and go into scope mode. Click on enable the dynamic topology. We're going to change that down to about 9. We're going to zoom in with the middle mouse button a little, hold the shift key down and click left click on the middle mouse button. Now we're going to do some sculpting, but we don't want to add to these letters, we want to subtract. So basically we're going to cut little pieces out of the edges of our text object, and you'll see that we'll just bop up and down here and go in. You'll see kind of like we're just carving out the sides of the font, kind of giving it that stone look. Okay, the S is done. Hold the shift key, move it over. I'll probably speed up the video in this section. This is just repetitive. No real reason for me to be talking while I'm doing this and you watching me do the same thing all the way through the font. So I'll speed this section up. Okay, so I've completed the front side of the text. Now we just want to add a couple of little indentations on the tops. Don't have to be super precise here. You're just gonna throw a couple in here so it's not completely uniform. Okay, now we're gonna press the 0 key to go in camera view, go back to object mode, and now if we render this out with the F12 key, you'll see that the stone is looking much more like someone chiseled these fonts out of stone. What are we missing? We're probably missing some highlights, because most of the time stone isn't just going to be diffuse. It's going to have a little bit of glossiness to it, or a little bit of a polish. So let's go back to our node editor here and talk a little bit about how we can add a little bit of glossiness to our stone. As it stands now, we have a diffuse and the stone image, and that's it. So we need to add a glossiness to this stone. So there's a couple of ways we could do that. We could click on the material section and try and do it here, but if we change our shader to include a mix shader in here, we'll lose some of these areas that we've already created. So it's easier to just do it in the node editor. So go to the node editor window, press Shift A, and add a mix shader. Go to shader, click mix shader, and do the same thing again. Shift A, shader, and we want a glossy shader. So what's going to happen here is we're going to add the glossiness in the top of the mix shader. We're going to add the diffuse to the bottom of the mix shader, and then we will put the output to the surface of our object. So let's click on preview here and see what that looks like. You can see that it looks way too shiny and kind of like a ceramic object almost. There's a couple of things we need to change. It's not going to, definitely don't want it that rough. So we're going to, for now, we're going to just turn that roughness all the way down, and you'll see now it's getting a little closer. We're getting almost like a clear coat on top of the stone texture, and this is kind of what we're looking for. It's still too ceramic-y. We need to tone that down a little bit, and you can tone that down by clicking on the color here and going from white to a about a mid gray. Now you see that we're starting to get our polished stone look. One thing that I've noticed is that it's not going to be perfectly smooth. We need to add a little bit of roughness. So we're going to move this up to about I think 0.1 is probably too much. Let's do a 0.075. That looks pretty good. And I would say that it's not going to be half and half as far as it being half shiny, half image texture. If you move this this facts section all the way to the left, you'll see that I just am going to be 100% glossy. If I move it all the way to the right, I'm going to be 100% diffuse, or 100% of the image. And 0.5 is half and half, but we want to be at about 0.9, in between 0.8 and 0.9 is the look we're going for to get realistic stone texture. Okay, so let's render that out and see how it looks. Okay, that's looking a little bit better. I think at this point the lighting we have is not really good enough, so I'm going to switch gears and talk a little bit about HDR images, or high definition resolution images that you can use to light your scenes. And that's what I'm going to do with this. I'm going to go back to the world section. Instead of using the sky texture, I'm going to click on that little button and go to the environment texture. And I'm going to go and grab an HDR image that I have. Again, you can find these on Google. Just Google HDR images and you'll find a ton of them. I'm going to go to one that I've already downloaded. And let's render that out. Let me just change it from texture to rendered so that I can change the strength here. So I knew it was going to be a little bit too strong. About 1.8 is going to be fine here. So now if we render that out with some HDR image lighting, you're going to see that it'll add quite a bit of realism to the stone texture look. Things are looking pretty good. Now that we have the base material all set up, we can just duplicate this text object a couple of times. Let's press escape. Go back to our texture look. Press number 7 to go to top view, press 5 to go to ortho. Use the middle mouse button, kind of zoom out a little bit, and then hold Shift D. And what we're doing is we're going to duplicate that mesh object, and we're going to left click and drop it there. We're going to press Shift and D to duplicate it one more time. We're going to move it back and press the left mouse button to lock that down. Alright, now we'll press 0 to view it again. So now that we have 3 of them, why did I do that? I'm just going to show you how easy it is to, once you've got your base texture set up for your object, it's very easy to create a variety of different looking stone objects. So let's right click on the center text here, click on material. We'll call this this first material, we'll just call that white stone. Now we're going to duplicate that white stone texture, and let's click on the folder icon here to select a different texture. Again, you can click up here to view your selection of images here. I'm going to back up one. I've got a nice green texture up here. I'm going to paste that on that piece of stone, and we're going to change that material to, say, green stone. And last but not least, we'll right click on the last text object here, and we will duplicate that material, and again we will go back in and find another material that we like here, about this one right here. That's kind of a different color. So now if I click on my viewport shading, click on render, Even though it's quick and dirty, you'll see that I've got a white, a green, and this one's kind of like a sandstone color. Let's render that out so that you can see it in all its glory. It'll take a couple of seconds here. And that's how easy it is to just take the basic setup for your materials and basically copy them and change them based on different images. And that's the node setup right there. And there's your final output. You got some nice chiseled textured stone in Blender 3D 2.71. Well, I hope you've learned something, and we've got some more text tutorials coming. I've got a nice audio controlled smoke tutorial coming up as well. So if you learned anything, click like, subscribe, and I'll try and get a lot more tutorials up here for you as soon as I can. Thanks for watching, and happy blending.